Welcome to The Complete Works, an official podcast of FilmBook. The Complete Works is a podcast that delves film by film into the filmography of a Hollywood actor, director, writer, or composer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Complete Works podcast, a film podcast brought to you by FilmBook. My name is Doug Hess. Now, if you're tuning into the Complete Work podcast for the first time, what I do on this podcast is discuss a specific movie from a film actor, actress, director, or composer's career. Currently working my way through the Tom Cruise career, and in this episode of the Complete Works podcast, I'll be discussing the film Risky Business. You can find out more information about the Complete Works podcast episodes on FilmBook, that's film-book.com, or by simply using the search term The Complete Works. Now, if you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or another podcast service, please rate and review this episode. If you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, please like our video, subscribe, and consider becoming one of the patrons on Patreons at patreon.com/FilmBook. Your support helps us create more engaging content. And as I just said a few minutes ago, we're going to be looking at the film career of Tom Cruise. This film is Risky Business, or this episode is his film Risky Business that came out in 1983, more exactly August the 5th of 1983. Runtime is approximately an hour and 39 minutes. Now, before we start jumping in and talking about the film, what I like to do is just give you a quick overview, no more than a minute or two, of what the film is roughly about. And if you haven't seen it, I strongly encourage you to find it out there on one of the streaming, or perhaps it's even out there on YouTube, but find Risky Business. I think you're going to enjoy it. So, Joel is the son played by Tom Cruise. He's a trustworthy son. He's industrious. He's a college-bound individual. They live in Chicago at the moment, and his parents want him to go to Princeton to college in terms of this. But he's kind of struggling a little bit, Joel is, because he's trying to live up to his parents' expectation, and as a teenager, he has a ton of different things on his plate already. So his mom and dad decide to go off on vacation, and they're going to leave Joel home by himself. Now, you're leaving a teenager who's kind of inexperienced with the world, and he tries to seize the moment for himself and to live a little, if you will. Unfortunately, Joel breaks one rule after another in this process, and he's kind of struggling to find his way. He's curiosity kind of gets him a little bit, and he has some unspoken desires, if you know what I mean there, in terms of that being a young male. And now he's kind of got in a little bit too deep. There's no turning back. The question is, has he thrown everything away? Has he thrown his life away? What happens, or what's going to happen when mom and dad comes back from vacation? Are they going to be able to trust Joel? Are they going to find out what he did in the process? However, I think you will find in this film, Joel finds or learns a couple things along the way: life, consequences, and that word love out there as well. So that's kind of a quick overview of the film. Like I said, it was released August 5th, 1983, runs about an hour and 39 minutes. My thoughts on this film: I really enjoyed the film. This is a film that I remember watching many, many moons ago, and it was really fun and neat to kind of bring that back into memory. I hadn't seen it in a while, and so it was kind of fun to rewatch it, if you will. And how can you not think of Risky Business without the iconic scene of Tom Cruise kind of sliding, if you will, with the dance scene? He's got the sunglasses on. He's got his dress shirt, boxers, white socks, and he's kind of sliding, dancing to Bob Seger, old-time rock and roll. I mean, how can you not? If you haven't seen it, you have to. That's just kind of like an iconic scene. No matter how long ago that you've seen it, it's just something that's really iconic when it comes to Cruise, and just something that you can't you just can't really forget about it, and I think it plays a good part of the movie in terms of that. Excuse me. I think the couple of things come to mind when I think of Risky Business. It's a coming-of-age movie. Now, we talked in the last podcast called Losing It, and some of the trivia that shows Tom Cruise playing a character who is a virgin, two movies back-to-back. That is true for this movie as well. In here, there's parts of this film that's kind of serious and deep, but it's also a comedy, if you will. And, when I first originally saw it, I didn't necessarily think of it as a comedy. And then when I got older, I can appreciate it a little better. And yes, there were some things that I got and could laugh at in the process. What makes this movie work, excuse me, is I think two things. Really two things that's in here. The dialogue, it was a well-written film. And I think that goes with no explanation. I mean, it was just well done in the film. It flowed easy. It was just easy to connect, and it was kind of written with that adolescence point of view in terms of that. The other thing is, I think the casting is done well in this movie in particular. Obviously, like I said, Tom Cruise is playing Joel, and he really kind of takes this this film, if you will, and kind of runs with it in the process. So I think Tom Cruise does a wonderful job. He's not too far into his acting career, if you will, at this point. And so at first, I would have thought it could have been a leap, but it's not. It's actually, I think, one of Tom Cruise's better films early on in terms of that. We also have Rebecca D. Moraine that's in here. You probably will remember Curtis Armstrong. He was in the Revenge of the Nerds movies. Better Off Dead is another one that comes to mind. So just some fine acting. I think the chemistry between Tom Cruise and Rebecca is there. You don't necessarily get that with two leading male females all the time, but I think that was just a very natural fit for those two. In terms of that, Rebecca plays a hooker, and it's kind of a thankless role, but she manages to nail it and does a really good job in being convincing of that process. It's a thankless role, like I said, of a hooker, but she also has a heart of gold in the process, and as the movie kind of progresses, she turns into kind of a special character in that film. And so I think they did a wonderful job with Rebecca, casting her in that role and playing opposite of Tom Cruise, again like that. And I can't really emphasize enough, this being early in Tom Cruise's career, I think he really nails it in terms of that. A couple parts in this film. One I've already kind of alluded to. It's the iconic scene of him dancing. But also the one scene that I don't think gets a lot of credit, it's at the very end when his parents come home and he's wondering what the heck they're going to say, what they're going to do. And he's out in the yard, he's raking. It's kind of a fall day. He's raking up the leaves. And they like, oh my God, Joel, what have you done? And blah, blah, blah. And it was about a vase that's in there. And I don't want to give too much away in that. But there was just something really iconic about that end scene where you kind of get the impression from Tom Cruise's character that he kind of gets it, that it all kind of makes sense, and it was all well worth the trouble for lack of a better word, in terms of that. So that to me was an epic part of the movie at the very end, in terms of that. We talked a little bit about some of the characters. I really think it's the two main characters that really steal the show, Cruz and Rebecca. They are the show. They are the ones that kind of keep the glue together in this film. And again, they work very well together. Some of the other films and genres of this kind of film, that's a great question, and something I've been kind of thinking about in the process of, how does this compare to other films? And what would be some other films that you would kind of put up against this? One that we talked about last week was to say that was not a great film, not one that I really cared for. But I think this one does a wonderful job and really goes beyond what a film can be. It's not one of those slapstick comedies, but there was some meaning in this film, about love, about trying to do what's right, going to school, and making sure that you don't really piss it all away and you're doing something positive with this life that's out there. And so I think that was really kind of important in terms of me being a importance in this film. And again, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm struggling a little bit for whatever reason to find a film that I thought was comparable to Risky Business. I really don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. And you would think that would be a little bit easier said than done, but for whatever reason, I'm kind of going blank. Probably the best things that I can come up with is Fast Times at Richmond High, Bachelor Party, but those two are more comedy. Fast Times at Richmond High, classic. I really get that. But they look at things differently. To me, while this was kind of a comedy, there was lines of seriousness in here, where the other ones, there may have been a little bit of that in there as well, but not as much. And maybe that's why I'm having a little bit harder of a time trying to decide what are some films in that genre that would kind of compare to that. But yeah, Fast Times at Richmond High would be one, and then definitely Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks in that. So anyways, those are more true comedies than I would consider Risky Business. I mean, so for what it's worth, that's kind of what I'm thinking there, is that this was a little bit deeper, if you will, than some of the others. What did I like about the film? I already said a couple things. I think the dialogue works very well. The casting is great in this. The movie at the time had some new faces. Now, again, we're looking at this from 2024, from 83, but there were some new faces in here that generally brought out some laughs, and I thought it was kind of a good refresher at the time. Again, we're looking at 83, and some of these individuals, that we talked about, we're basing them off of other works that they have done, and so at times it can be a little hard to put things in perspective in that. But no, I thought the dialogue was good, and so was the casting on it. It was a good comedy, even though I'm not 100% sure I truly agree with that it's a full comedy in there. And And the other thing, there was a little bit of mystery in there as well. The more I think about it, with guilt, greed, lust, secrecy, all those words kind of come together about that. And the other thing is that it says, that, in my opinion, this movie knows what goes on behind the closed bathroom doors of the American dream. And that was something that I had written down. Wanted to make sure that I mentioned that, because this movie knows what goes on behind the closed bathroom doors. That was a key point there in terms of that. We already talked a little bit about the music, if you will. Bob Seger, Old Time Rock and Roll. That in itself is well worth the discussion in terms of that. Let's talk a little bit about the box office. It was budgeted for about $6.2 million. What's interesting, in the U.S. and Canada, it grossed a little over $63 million. Opening weekend, it brought in about $4.2 million. And like I said, gross worldwide, a little over $63 million. So obviously a big hit in terms of that. Let's talk a little bit about some trivia when it comes to Risky Business. So in an effort to make Tom Cruise look younger, he was 20 during the filming of this, and to make him look more like a teenager in his appearance, the producers put him through an unusual bit of physical training, making him work out 7 days a week in order for him to lose a little bit of weight. Once that had been accomplished, he immediately ceased workouts and ate extremely fatty foods in order to add a layer of baby fat in terms of that. This is how he achieved that fresh-faced teenage look. So that was all kind of by design. Curtis Armstrong, making his film debut, kept a journal during the filming. One of his early impressions of Tom Cruise, he wrote, quote, "Tom, an interesting character, can't really make him out. He would appear to be on the brink of a great career, but when it comes to doing things with him, socially or professionally, he's not terribly relatable. Always late, very casual with other people's time, but in spite of it all, it's difficult not to like him. Through its early days, the rehearsing I've done with him has gone smoothly. No arrogance or selfishness there yet. We'll see." End of quote. So thought that was kind of a little interesting there from Curtis Armstrong in his journal. The sunglasses that Joel wore are Ray-Bans model. Annual sales of the Wayfarers were languished as of 83, but skyrocketed over 2,000% after the movie's release. This film and the Blues Brothers from the 80s have combined to the popularity of that style. The dance scene where Joel dances to Old Time Rock and Roll was completely improvised. In the script, Tom Cruise was simply instructed to dance to rock music. So very interesting about that. When the film came out, Rebecca D. Mornay, born in 59, claimed a 62 birthday, so she would seem the same age as Tom Cruise. So kind of lied a little bit about that. Joe's house that's in the movie is located at 1258 Linden Avenue in Highland Park, Illinois. In Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Cameron's house is located at 370 Beach Street, Highland Park, Illinois. In real life, they are located just around the corner from each other. So I thought you might find that a little interesting. So Tom Cruise and Rebecca began dating during the production. She was 3 years his senior, but according to Curtis Armstrong's, things were complicated as Rebecca had Harry Dean Stanton on set with her, whom she had become romantically involved during the filming of One from the Heart in 81. John Cusack, Nicolas Cage, Michael J. Fox, Tom Hanks, and Sean Penn all auditioned for the part of Joel that went on to Tom Cruise. Childhood photographs of Tom Cruise can be seen in the living room. During the filming, Sean Penn was also in Chicago making Bad Boys in '83. He and Cruise, who had bonded during the filming of Taps back in '81, would socialize regularly with one another. Sharon Stone auditioned for the role of Lana. Rob Lowe, in his autobiography, turned this down because he thought it was just weird. The opening dream sequence was shot in 18 hours. Okay. According to Bronson, Tom Cruise would address his fellow actors by their characters' names. Okay. Let's see here. The film was originally called White Boys Off the Lake. According to Paul Brookman, the studio disliked this title as they felt it sounded like an off-Broadway play. Kim Basinger turned down the role of Lana because she didn't like the script. The only remaining 1979 Porsche 928 used in the filming of Risky Business sold for $1.9 million at an auction on September the 28th, 2021. As Joe is counting his hard-earned gains, he is whistling the Phil Collins song In the Air Tonight, which is also used during the movie. In terms of that, Brooke Shield was considered for the role of Lana, but turned it down to focus on her education at Princeton, where Joe, quote-unquote, was trying to get into, in terms of that. At their initial initiation night together, Lana tells Joe that he owes her $300. When adjusted for inflation, that equates to $777.45 as of 2020 dollars. Tom Cruise was 21 when Risky Business hit theaters. Tom Cruise became a star after the movie's August the 5th, 1983 release. Now, this film was included in the American Film Industry's 1989 list of 400 movies nominated for the top 100 greatest American movies. Okay. Let's see here. Curtis and Tom Cruise, the two male stars of the movie, are very short. Cruise is 5'7", Armstrong is 5'4". The face Joel makes after saying "looks like University of Illinois" was improvised by Tom Cruise. Paul Brookman loved the face expression that he kept in the film. This line is exactly ironic since University of Illinois is actually a very exclusive university and considered itself to be also part of the Ivy Leagues. A better line would have been, well, I think it's Illinois State University. Illinois State more has the reputation of being open enrollment, not prestige type of college that they're taking to evoke here. The University of Illinois, on the other hand, was no doubtly offered by giving representation in this way. In fact, there's a long-standing controversy in the state of Illinois about how the university takes state funding when they have such a very exclusive enrollment practice, something which may people see as a conflict of interest. There in the state of Illinois. Excuse me. In Mission Impossible, John Vaughn references the Drake Hotel, the hotel that Tom Cruise walks out of after tracking down Rebecca or Lana in the film. Just a couple more here that we'll give you. Included among the American film industry's 2004 list of top 10 American greatest music for the song Old Time Rock and Roll. The key line in the movie and the main message, sometimes you just got to say, what the fuck? That refers to the title and vice versa. Risk saying, what the heck? In terms of that. And one last thing here is Tom Cruise and Rebecca appear in the film directed by Francis Ford Coppola. De Moray in One of the Heart in 1981, and Cruise in The Outsiders in 1983. So that's hopefully just a quick view of the film there. risky business. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would I rank this as? I would definitely say this is one of those must-see films. I'm going to give it a 7. 1 being terrible and 10 being outstanding. I'm going to give it a 7. It's like I said, it's one of the movies that I really think made Cruise a star and put him on his way there, being a star. So if you haven't seen it, please go out and see it. You're not going to be disappointed. Well, I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Complete Works Podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe for future episodes. You'll find FilmBook on all major social media networks, so give us a follow. You can find more information on FilmBook's official website, which is film-book.com. Just search for Doug Hess or The Complete Works. You can also find me on Twitter at HessDoug14. Tune in next time when I review and analyze the next Tom Cruise film. Thank you for listening. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to The Complete Works. Find more of The Complete Works on FilmBook, on your favorite podcast service, and on YouTube.